According to this doctrine, the perception is subjective and is more about the pathways through which sensory information is transmitted than the actual physical properties of the stimulus. This idea paved the way for understanding the brain as interpreter for sensory data rather than a passive receiver. Historical context. In Muller's contributions, Johannes Muller, who first proposed this theory in his book Handbuch der Physiologie des Menschen, Handbook of Human Physiology, published in 1833, significantly influenced the field of neurophysiology. His work highlighted the specificity of sensory in systems that suggested that different types of sensory experiences were linked to different pathways in the nervous system. Influence on future research. Muller's doctrine was a precursor to later theories of sensory processing and brain function. It emphasizes the idea that different parts of the brain and nervous system have specialized functions, an idea that would further developed by later neuroscientists and neurobehaviorists. Relation to later theories, the localization of function. The doctrine of specific nerve energies laid the groundwork for the idea of localization of function in the brain, where different brain regions and neural pathways are responsible for the different types of sensory and the cognitive processes. Understanding sensory modalities. This doctrine also contributed to the understanding of sensory modalities, how we distinguish between different types of sensations like sight, sound, touch, audio by linking them to specific neural pathways. The contemporary relevance, the neuroscience and the sensory systems. Today, the concept of specific nerve energies is understood in the context of different sensory receptors and neural pathways. Modern neuroscience has expanded on Muller idea by exploring how different types of receptors respond to various stimuli and how this information is processed in the brain. Neuroplasticity and sensory substitutions. The doctrine also has implications for understanding neural plasticity and sensory substitutions, where one sensory modality might take over the function of another. Example, touch or hearing or compensating for the loss of vision, showing that the brain's interpretation of nerve signals is flexible. Pere Florence, in from he was between 1794 to 1867, was a pioneering French physiologist who made significant contributions to the biological roots of neuroscience through his development of the experimental ablation method and his theory of the functional organization of the brain. Florence experimental ablation method. The experimental ablation method involves systematically removing, ablating specific areas of the brain and in animals and observing the resulting changes in behavior and bodily functions. This method allowed Florence to investigate the functions of different brain regions. Second, one is the purpose and approach of experimental ablation. the Florence used